So hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to this interesting webinar. I am Surita Kulkarni, co-founder of GoCrackit, a career advisory platform. So we have mentored 10,000 plus students across MBA and other programs, including students of different programs from IIMs, ISB, XLRI, MDI, and so on. We also have a suite of products for emerging and new age careers, including analytics, data science, etc. And this webinar is part of the career and career advisory and mentoring that we do for new age careers. Do stay tuned to our social media pages for more updates from our end. Let me now introduce Vinith quickly. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce Vinith, who would be conducting today's webinar. So, Vinith has a very interesting career journey across finance, consulting, analytics, technology, and product management. He started his career in consulting at NEC, a Japanese MNC in the United States, and contributed in different roles across advisory and sales. He then moved to India to pursue his MBA from IIM Bangalore, post which he joined BNY Mellon, which is the world's largest custodian bank. At BNY, he led multiple teams across product, project, and strategy. He then joined OYO as Director of Product Management. Currently, he is AVP Customer Data and Digital at Chubb, which is again one of the largest auto insurers in the US. So, with his extensive and deep experience, he has a lot of insights to share with all of us today. Thank you so much, Vinith, for being with us today. Over to you, and let me know when I should start sharing the presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Surta, for the kind introduction. I think you've added a lot more things. Just a regular guy, trying to get by, But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I think it'll be an interesting session. I think, Surta, if you want to share the slide, I think that'll be good. It'll be easier for me to also just walk through what are the different areas that we're trying to cover. So, to start with, I'll try to explain what the title is, right? Because I got a few things myself that what does the title really mean, right? So we live in a world where data is all prevalent. It's everywhere, and the kind of data that we're dealing with today is phenomenal, right? Now, traditionally, we've always had an approach that, in the industry, right? You get the data, you create a report, you do the analysis and get the job done. However, with such vast amount of data, I think this is becoming increasingly difficult. And, we need to start thinking like product managers to manage such large volume of data, right? So that's what I'm trying to cover in this topic. Just to share a quick background about myself, Surta did explain and talk a little bit about my journey of how it transpired from strategy to data to product, right? So I joined BNY after my MBA. I joined BNY Mellon in the ID strategy role, and eventually, right, I always had a flair for data. So I started working on some of the data analytics work within the firm. And I was asked to join the data and analytics team again, right? There we initially started with trying to leverage our own data, creating very simple reportings. What happened was, over a period of time, I started realizing that every manager is asking for the same kind of data and reports, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to service them. So what I thought is, let's create a simple dashboard, right? This was early days. Let's create a simple dashboard, and every manager can come and look at their own report, look at their own data. I don't want to go and service 500 different managers across the globe trying to generate individual reports for them. So that's how my journey as a product manager started, right? Because it is a mindset. It is a change in the mindset from a services thought process that I have to service every single customer, to a mindset where I don't want to service a customer. I want to service all the customers with one product, so that I don't have to curate different things for different individuals. So that's how so with that, what started from one dashboard eventually led into multiple analytical products. We actually created products around leveraging our own data, created machine learning algorithms so that we can leverage more of our data, for with regards to predicting the future outcomes of some of the products that we are servicing. And I was formally actually inducted in the product management role within Bank of New York Mellon. So within a span of about 6.5 years within BNY Mellon, I moved from strategy to data and analytics to product management, and then obviously my journey as a product manager evolved across Oyo, across even at Chubb. So I think that's been my journey. It was not that I thought that I wanted to be a product manager, but I think it was my mindset in terms of I don't want to keep on working for for each individual, rather than having a product mindset that helps me to move towards a product manager role. And throughout this presentation, I'll be covering different aspects about data and analytics and how we can leverage a product manager mindset in data and analytics world, right? And towards the end, we'll also open the forum for any Q&A, and feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. I will try to address as much as possible during the during uh, the presentation itself, but if there are areas left, we'll try to cover them towards the end, right? Let's this is the agenda that I have prepared for today. I think why the analytics euphoria, right? Why suddenly everybody is talking about data and analytics? What has changed in the last couple of years, right? That wasn't there earlier, right? We'll talk about types of different analytics that we have in the industry today, uh, and then we'll talk about a few different personas in the analytics world. What are their daily challenges? How you can think like a product manager to address some of those challenges. Then we'll deep dive into understanding those challenges. We'll take a slightly deeper dive into how would a product manager approach a data and analytics world. What should be his thought process? How should he think about? How should he engage with his business stakeholders? Then we'll talk about an ideal case scenario of how a data and analytics product, or what should be the goals of a data and analytics product, how you should think from a long-term perspective. We'll talk about what are the typical roles in a data and analytics world, like and I'll talk a little bit more detail, like this should be the background, this should be their experience, etc. And in the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next slide, right? Why the analytics euphoria, right? If you think about it, right, insurance industry, I don't know how many of you are aware that insurance industry has been a pioneer in using analytics, because how they write an insurance is purely based on a statistical model. They predict what are the chances of a particular person asking for insurance. That's what the underwriting process is, right? So we have been using analytics for at least 60, 70 years. So what has suddenly changed in the last about 10 odd years? What has suddenly happened, right? And I think this is specific to we what, let's try to make this a little more interactive, right? So on my screen there's a chessboard, and there are a few numbers there. Can anybody explain what that is, right? How is what it is talking about? And you can mention that in the chat. I'll give you a hint. It's a law. It's a law that was written kind of couple of about 50, 60 years ago. So I'll talk, I'll explain a story, right? So there was this king. Yeah, I think a few of the guys have answered that, right? So there was this king who who wanted, he really liked one of his knights. So he said that, what, you won a war for me. I give you whatever you want. So he said, uh, just give me rice. He said, okay, fine. He just said that give me rice that fits on a chessboard. And then, okay, sure, not a big deal. Such a small chessboard, I can give you rice. So he explained, okay, what rice? How much rice you want? He said that on the every box or every square within the chessboard, you just double the rice in the next box, right? So in the first box there's 1 grain of rice, in the second there's 2 grains of rice, in the third it's 4 grains of rice, and so on. So if you're doubling the number of rice on each square, it will double. So by the time you reach the 32nd box, right? Your grains of rice have grown from 1 to 2000, right? And by the time it reaches the 40th box, it's like 500 times, not 500 times, 500,000 times, right? 5 lakh times more than where it started. So I think that's where some of you guys have mentioned that's the Moore's law, right? It was written almost 50-60 years ago, where it says that the computing power of the computers are going to improve. It's going to double every 2 years. So it's been almost 50-55 years since that Moore's law has been there. And over the last 10 years is when we are seeing that exponential growth in the computing power. And because of that, a lot of data is getting generated. And everybody is thinking about how I can leverage, the data. Every organization. We talk about Google. Google is entirely a database. Facebook is entirely, they're based on data. Tesla, it's a car company, right? But if you think about the self-driving car, they are processing, millions of records per minute. Amazon, their recommendations is world known. But there's a strange name there, which is Airbus. Can anybody make a guess why the Airbus is there? I mean, I'll give maybe 30-40 seconds. Why Airbus is in the is in the list of analytics euphoria company. Okay, so I'll explain, right? So what has happened is Airbus as a company has opened up a separate organization which is for analytics. So someone is mentioning huge data for flight operations. Absolutely, right? So what they've started doing is essentially they have installed sensors in different parts of the airplane, and they are processing that. Now, obviously, the airlines, they are, each airline has their own, aircraft, and they have hundreds, from tens to hundreds of aircraft. But what is Airbus started doing is they started collecting all of that data in the cloud, started processing, and started giving insights to airlines of how they can maybe do scheduled maintenance. They can talk about if they are traveling from distance X to distance Y, how much gas they need, etc., etc. Right? So and they're making money out of it. So in that world, so when we talk about monetizing data, this is a great example where Airbus is an air manufacturer, but it is monetizing the data it is generating out of its its aircraft and selling the same data back to the to the airlines that are giving them the data. So it's technically Airbus doesn't own the data; it is airlines data, but because they have the expertise to manage that data, they are making money. Tesla, right? Today Tesla is one of the fastest growing company in terms of market cap. It has its going up and down. It's mostly, and it's not because of its cars. Definitely, I think everybody. So the market share or the expected revenue from self-driving cars is pegged at about 800 billion to $1 trillion in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, Tesla is biggest bet right now is self-driving cars, and if they're able to crack that problem, they will be able to get into a market of $800 billion, and that's what is fueling their growth. How much data they're processing each day of driving for about 4 to 6 hours of self-driving car. It generates a data size of 4 terabyte each car. right? For about 4 to 6. So the amount of data that is increasing, the amount of data that is improving or processing is happening is increasing a lot. So that's why the analytics euphoria. So Srita, we can go to the next slide. I mean, some of the data points, right? 90% of all data that has been created in the entire history of mankind has been in the last 2 years. 97% of the organizations are actually investing a lot on big data and analytics because that's where they realize that's the future. Because without, we hear these jokes these days that are coming, right? That somebody, calls a Google call center, or, because now Google owns Domino's, they say, what, yeah, sir, I want to order a pizza. He said that, no, sir, your cholesterol is too high, and this and that. So there's a long joke, but that's very close to reality of where the world is heading towards. So data processing, ability to manage huge amounts of data is very high, and you definitely need smart and intelligent product managers who can manage all of that data rather than, struggling with it. So moving on to the next slide, right? These are the different types of data analytics that we have in the industry. So I'll start with the descriptive. The x-axis talks about complexity, and the y-axis talks about the value addition a particular type of data and analytics provide. Right. So from a complexity perspective, we'll start about descriptive. Descriptive analytics, as the name suggests, is describing something, describing the data. What I want to look at the number of what is the profitability last year. I'm describing the problem. How much profit I gained from different countries. A simple report, right? That's the most simplest form of data analytics, and it has its value, but and compared to others, it's less. Second is diagnostic. Now I've done the analysis on profitability. I want to know why the profitability has, decreased say by 5%. Is it because my revenue has decreased? Is it because my profitability has, or my cost has increased? If the cost has increased, which particular product the cost is causing the problem, and so on. So there the analyst would go dig deep, identify, do the analysis, and diagnose where the problem is rather than, just describing the problem. The third one is predictive analytics. The predictive, as the name suggests, now I've identified that, what is the product revenue or what is the profitability. I want to be able to predict, what is going to be my, revenue for the, next 1 year. But, an interesting part is, we almost on a daily basis use a product that uses a very powerful prediction. Almost, especially all the people who travel, right, through, either cars or bikes, we use a very amazing technology today that predicts. Can anybody tell me what that is? You can type it on the chat. Yep, Google Maps. Absolutely, right? So every single day when I start my journey from my home, I put it in my prediction. I put my start from, where am I going to start and where am I going to end, right? It tells you, okay, what, you're starting from place A, you're reaching place B, it's going to take, 1 hour. So that's essentially what prediction is, right? You may take 1 hour, 5 minutes, you may take 55 minutes. Prediction doesn't necessarily have to be accurate, but if you start noticing your prediction on your travel time is on a regular basis is becoming more and more accurate. Why? Because Google is processing all that information on real time. How does Google process traffic? They literally look at each and every Android device, and Android device is sending data on real time to Google servers, and based on that they are predicting whether the traffic is increasing or not. And in the same way, what is prescriptive? Prescriptive is when I'm prescribing a particular solution after my prediction. So say I search for an area for a distance from, when I'm traveling using Google Maps. Google will actually tell us that, there's a significant traffic on the regular route. Do you want to take an alternate route? That's a classic example of how prediction is being used or helping your customers to improve your user experience. So that is where the prescriptive comes into the picture. And finally, we talk about cognitive. Cognitive, or in other words, we've also a synonym to cognitive is artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? Where you are bringing artificial intelligence in the computers, by processing a lot of data, right? So there are a few things. It's very difficult for you to computers to do that, which might be very easy for you, right? Driving a car is very simple. We have our own cognitive abilities to drive a car, but for a computer to drive that car, a computer needs to process million transactions per second. They need to look at where the car is coming from, where it is going. To recognize a photo, it's very simple for you. Yeah, this is me, this is my friend. But for Google Photos to actually recognize whether it's the same person or it's different, it's a significant amount of data processing. They need to break down every single pixel on that photograph and do it for millions of photos. So that's where the cognitive intelligence in the analytics is coming, and that's where the artificial intelligence work is moving towards. So these are the 5 different kinds of analytics. The more the complexity, the more the value addition, right? Now let's move to the a few different personas, right? In terms of what are the different kinds of personas we'll have in analytics world. I'll take 2 simple examples. The first one is, say, Neeraj. He joins an FMCG company. He joined as a data analyst. His manager asks him to analyze the product profitability across product lines across the globe. Now he starts. I mean, he trust me. Anybody who has worked in any kind of analytics, these are the problems you will face on a daily basis. First of all, he will not even know how to get the data. He will scramble through all the organization resources to figure out how to get the data. He finds out how to get the data. The person will not give data. He thinks he is the owner of the data. Why should I give the data to you? It's like, it's my property. Person doesn't, even if he is willing to give the data, anything beyond 500 MB, which is, nothing big, it becomes very difficult to actually physically give the data. You can't send it in email. You can't, do share drives, because such large file, with network traffic across VPNs, it will not work. So you will actually struggle a couple of days to have, if somebody wants to actually give you the data, they will not even be able to give you the data. Now you have, assume you have the data, right? So I'll say we talk about FMCG company. One of the most common problems where we face in companies is common business definitions, right? So ITC is selling agarbattis in India. The same ITC, if they're sending probably in, say London or Europe, they will not call it agarbatti, they will call in, incense sticks. So now the data analyst, when he's trying to create a product profitability of agarbattis across the globe, how will he know whether it's one place it's incense sticks, other place is agarbatti? He will go nuts. So he will have to create a common business definition. So before actually trying to get into so this is where the product mindset comes in for a data analyst. So instead of thinking that, let me try to do profitability across different products, let me try to actually understand, how do I create a common business definition? He will first create a backlog of how, what are the things that I need. So I need a common business definition for all the products across the globe. He will create the common business definition. After creating the common business definition, he will be able to quickly, create that product profitability report. Now the benefit of that common business definition for products that tomorrow ITC plans to launch into a new market, right? They want to know which products they should be choosing based on profitability. What should be the customer segmentation? Unless they have a common business definition for the product, it will be very difficult for them to actually understand how they should be marketing in that new market. So that's where the common business definition actually becomes a product in itself. So that's what, when I spoke about a product mindset, so instead of creating a report, when we create a common business definition, we should do it in such a way that it becomes a product. It can be used across the organization by anybody who wants to use a common business definition. So that's where we're thinking about. So a simple data analyst can become a product manager if he starts thinking about how do you create a product that can be reused. So that's where, I think I wanted to stress on the point is where how the data analyst should start thinking like a product manager. Moving on to the next slide, here, we're talking about Sanvi. Give me a second, guys. She's joined a retail bank in India, and she's a data scientist, and her manager wants to do a cross-sell opportunities between credit cards and bank accounts. I don't know about you guys, but so many times I have, without naming the bank, right? At least in the past, I used to get messages. I have both credit card and bank accounts with that bank. And what the bank account will say is, sir, why don't you, buy a credit card? Same way, the credit card department will say, sir, why don't you open a bank account? They will have two different portals. If I have to do cross-sell, the point is it is a very frustrating experience from a user, from a customer perspective that, I get 10 SMSs every single day from different places where I know I don't even need those services, right? So why is that bank facing that problem? Because today they don't have a common platform where it creates a golden copy for that customer. Nobody knows who that customer is in the bank, right? My father is 77 years old, and the other day he got a phone call from life insurance that, sir, why don't you buy life insurance, right? It is a very fundamental issue that, whoever is doing that, marketing campaign doesn't even know that, my father at the age of 77 is not even eligible for a life insurance policy. They are wasting their time, and they're wasting my father's time. So that's where it is very important, again, to manage this as a product. So before you start thinking about cross-selling, do you even know your customer well within the organization? Do you know what are the services he is using? What is his customer lifetime value? What is how much he wants to, what kind of business he is generating? How do you segment that customer? So before you get into the cross-selling, you need to organize yourself within the organization, capture all that data, and then talk about advanced use cases. We have this tendency that, everybody keeps on talking about, so I often hear this, right? When cryptocurrencies came in, there was this fad about every CIO wanting to do something in blockchain without really understanding what is the use case of blockchain. Same way, right? Everybody wants to do data science today. I have been in organizations where, we spent 3 to 4 years, having data scientists, spending significant amount of money, but not a single product or a solution or a service being created to actually service our customers. And that is a standard across many organizations, right? Because we are always in the stage of analysis paralysis. We don't think like a product manager. And that's where I keep on stressing that we need to start having a product manager mindset to data and analytics. So moving on to the next slide, it's as simple as that. Data analytics is a means to an end. But if you have bad data, you're going to get bad results. It's as simple as, I always GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If you have garbage data going into a model, all you're going to get are garbage results. So that's, I think, where we need to start thinking about how do we make it a more, having the data itself is very important. So moving on to the next slide, right? This is where we talk about a product manager's approach to analytics, right? Instead of, saying that we want to do something in data science, it is important, first of all, the product manager needs to understand what are the business objectives. What does the business actually want to achieve? Do they want to do organic growth or do they want to do inorganic growth? They want to get into new products, they want to add new markets, they want to launch new products, or they want to go to new markets. What exactly, do they care about retaining customers? Is that a problem? If that's not a problem, do they want to, if we have to acquire new customers, is that a problem? Right? Depending on your industry type, what your business really wants. That's where the business objectives. It is very important for the product manager to actually know what the business objectives are. Without knowing the business objectives, getting into any kind of analytics work is not gonna really help. And based on the business objectives, the product manager needs to start thinking, right, where the data is, how is he going to get the data, whether the data is going to help with achieving the business objectives or not. That's where truly the role of a product manager comes in. Once he knows what the data he needs, what are the different business problems you're trying to solve, you need to start thinking about, what is going to be my data strategy? How am I going to be able to get the data? How am I going to leverage the data? How will I make it available to my data analyst? I have 5 different types of data analytics techniques, right? So which one do I need? What kind of data I need for them? What kind of storage I need for them? What kind of infrastructure I need for them? I need to be able to scale up the infrastructure, so on, right? So data is not, because today, if you're talking about managing petabytes and zettabytes of data, you need to be able to understand how you're going to manage that much of data. So that's where you need to have a data strategy. Once you have a data strategy, you need to have a backlog, right? You need to understand that how you're going to onboard the data, how you're going to get all of the data that you want. You need to understand what are the business use cases now. From business objectives, you need to drill down to actual use cases. Like, the business objectives is I want to launch into a particular market. So the business use cases, this particular market had this kind of customers, so what kind of products I need to launch in that market. So that's now the use case. So I need to be able to know all my products. I need to have the data for all my products across the globe for me to do any kind of meaningful analytics. That's where having that product backlog of use cases and a detailed roadmap of how you want to achieve that needs to be there. Otherwise, you'll just be you'll be just a hamster churning the wheel, and that is what happens. You are the guy who needs to bridge interactions with business stakeholders. I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting where you have business stakeholders and technology guys. Business stakeholders will just simply say, send me this report, send me this data, send me this, send me that, and your technology team will just be churning the wheel trying to give them data. And trust me, you will never ever reach anywhere. So that's where the role of a product manager comes. He is the one who streamlines the request that comes from business, and he sets up that expectations with the business stakeholders in terms of what you can achieve when. He needs to be able to have the detailed roadmap of what we're going to achieve this year, next year. That's where the role of a product manager really comes in. And finally, balance agility with analytics product complexity. Now, to do I always feel that the word data science is actually an oxymoron, right? Data science is actually not a science; it's an art, right? Analytics, a report generation is a science. You just get all of data together and create a report. But data science is an art. You need to know what kind of models are going to work, what kind of algorithm, what is going to be your confusion matrix, what kind of precision and recall you're acceptable, what is the level of accuracy you're okay with a data science model. Whether you want to use a cat boost model or or a different model for your algorithms. So I think that's it is how you're going to retrain your model. What are the different features you need for your model? This is such an iterative process, and having that as a product is very complex. And many times many of the data analytics or data science projects don't succeed mainly because there's lack of clarity, and and many times they don't succeed because the use case itself, we don't have the sufficient data to actually manage that use case. So it's okay, but the important thing is we need to figure out a way to manage the business stakeholders from a product roadmap perspective, balance the agility, and also manage the complexity. And that's where the true role of a product manager comes in. So now when we talk about the goals of a typical product management, right?
Vinit,
Yeah,
just doing a time check. So we are at almost at 12:40 right now.
sure.
I thought I will
I'll
just
take
do that.
sure. I'll take about 5-7 minutes. I'll finish it off by 12:45.
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just give me
So
1 minute.
now, quickly jumping on to what should be the ideal goals for a product manager. Uh, First is data on demand. He needs to think about that everybody in the organization should be a data analyst, right? A simple report can be generated by anybody in the organization. So data should be available on demand for everybody. Fail fast, right? They need to have an environment set up where everybody, data scientists, data analysts, can quickly come do their hypothesis testing, making sure whether this works or not, and fail fast. I love the Google's terminology on fail fast. So we need to learn to fail fast. Most of the organization, we actually end up failing slow. We fail, but instead of failing in 1 to 2 weeks, we actually end up failing in 5 to 6 months and maybe even more. Scale fast. Once you've developed your hypothesis, you need to figure out how you're going to scale up. Last mile connectivity. You need to be able to have a robust infrastructure to actually take your analytics to your customers, whatever you decide, and deliver fast. Is once you finalize everything, you need to be able to deliver things in weeks and months, not in years, right? You need to have an incremental approach on delivery. Now, I wrote an article about this. It's on my LinkedIn profile. It's data-driven culture. Feel free to read more about. I've highlighted some of the most common challenges. Data analytics teams face during any implementation, and what can you do to address them. So do read that article. You'll actually get a good idea on. And these are all the real daily challenges that data analytics teams face in majority of the companies. Now, talking about my last slide, what are the different kinds of roles, right? So there are broadly, right, 4 kinds of roles. First is a data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, data engineer, and a product manager. So a data analyst or a business analyst is a person who typically does descriptive and diagnostic analysis. If you remember the bottom 2 circles that we saw, he will look at the data, he will analyze the data, he will give insights to the data, uh, and provide insights to the management, right? So that's the role of a data or a business analyst. What are the kind of skills they need? Tableau, Excel is still an evergreen product. Angular for visualizations and many other visualizations too. There's Power BI, there is ClickSense, etc. So any of those visualization tools that your organization uses is sufficient. Domain knowledge, I think, is very important for a business analyst to actually know the domain. Statistical knowledge, low to medium, because they're only analyzing the data. Ideal background, I would say, MBA with a background in ability to write SQL queries is great. Years of experience, typically 2 to 8, right? Second is a data scientist. Data scientist is a person who would typically do predictive and prescriptive analytics. If you remember in the box, the next one, and the data scientist would actually take it to the cognitive also. The next 3 circles would be the data scientist. What are the kind of skills you need to have? R was still a little while ago, but I think Python is now becoming the mainstream application or technology to implement machine learning. The number of libraries they have is much, much higher. SAS, SPSS. Now, it is important for them to know Hadoop, because Hadoop is where all the data is being stored, and how to fetch that data is equally important, right? Statistics knowledge, obviously, they need to be experts and be able to know statistics really well. What are the kind of ideal background? Again, development and or MBA. Now, if you have to start into a data science journey, you cannot become a data scientist. One fine day you want to be a data scientist, you will not become a data scientist. You will have to start as a data analyst first. You need to know the data before you actually become a data scientist. You need to understand how to use the data, write SQL queries. You will not become a data scientist simply one day. You need to able to do data analysis work, data business analysis work before becoming a data scientist. I have never seen anybody who has become a data scientist without, let me rephrase, anybody who's a true data scientist or a successful data scientist without his ability to do data analysis, right? Third is the data engineer. Now, I do want to highlight, right? Uh, we are dealing with petabytes and terabytes of data, sorry, zettabytes of data, right? Now, a data engineer is the person who makes the data available for data scientists. Now, it may not sound as fancy, but trust me, data engineer and data management has become one of the most important fields in the data science world, because as I mentioned in my previous slide, garbage in, garbage out, right? So, a data engineer is the one who actually provides you data to do the analysis. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll have your data scientists and your data analysts sitting twiddling their thumbs waiting for data and not doing anything. So data engineer is an extremely important role. So don't never think that data engineer and data. So trust me, some of the good data engineers are probably as expensive or more expensive as data scientists, because managing large amounts of data is as important as analyzing it. Ideal background, he's a person, I'm not saying the person shouldn't have an MBA, right? But what I'm saying is it is mandatory that he has development experience, because he is the guy who will actually be doing hands-on coding. So it is important that that's the background that is needed. And finally, product manager, he is a person who manages a team, a product, a scientist, right? He needs to have strong analytical skills. He needs to know tools and techniques. What are the available techniques in the market? He needs to have high domain knowledge. He should have moderate statistics knowledge. He should be able to talk to data scientists to understand at least whether the model is working or not, what are the key parameters they're exploring to validate the accuracy of the model, and so on, right? They don't need to be an expert in statistics, but they should be able to at least challenge their data scientists whether the models are accurate or not. Ideal background, MBAs, years of experience, definitely, you need someone relatively senior who can talk to senior business stakeholders, because a product manager is the CEO of a product. So now, if I talk about the path, uh, you know, if you're a data analyst, you need to start working as a data analyst. Then you will have the choice to either get into data scientist or a product manager. If you want to get into data scientist, you need to be a lot more into coding. You need to be a lot more into development. But if you want to be in product management, then you need to have a more of a strategic vision, the ability to manage business stakeholders, your ability to understand business problems, and that's where you will become a product manager. So you can either be a data analyst. After data analyst, you can either be a data scientist or a product manager. But your journey starts as a data analyst. So that's broadly, what I wanted to cover in this session. Maybe we can start with some questions. What master's courses are available for data product manager profile people? Again, right, Sagnik, there are, so product management is not a for data analysts. This is getting into too much of specialization. You need to understand the concepts of product management, and those concepts could be applied anywhere. Now, if you want to understand data analytics, then obviously you need to have a little bit of a background in data analytics. So a product manager could be a product manager for a web portal. A product manager could be a product manager for monetizing your data. So if you have to be someone who knows web portal, then you need to be able to understand the technology of the web portal. You need to understand what are the different kinds of technology that are available. How do I create a UI or a UX, right? How do I create a mockups if I am a product manager for a technology, right? For a web portal. But if I have to be a data analyst, then I need to pick up courses on data. I need to know data. But the concept, the fundamental concepts of product management would apply the same. And there are ample courses available on product management. You go to Coursera, you go to Udemy. There are a lot of courses available in product management. But if you have to specialize in a specific area of product management, then you need to understand that technology and the domain. Hope that answers your question, Sagnik. More questions, guys?
There are a lot of questions on the form also, Suruta. You can check that as well.
Sure, let me open the form.
Yeah, Vineet, one of the common questions is also what kind of certifications, right, which is related to master courses, master's courses. If I've done or if I'm pursuing a MBA from a good institute, do I also need to do additional certifications for analytics?
So guys, I've always believed in two things, right? One is what kind of degree you have and what kind of mindset you have, right? So degree will only take you as far. You can be a Stanford or a Harvard graduate, but if you don't have the mindset to be a product manager or a data analyst, you will not be a successful guy, right? So what is a mindset? As I spoke about, right? The mindset is where you need to start thinking, you need to start questioning everything. Why is this? If I have to use, why should I be using mean here and not median? Where are the places I should be using standard deviation? Where are the places I need to XG boost versus CAT boost? Why CAT boost over XG boost? Right, as a model, right? The important thing is you need to start questioning. You need to have the mindset of questioning people. Sometimes people, are worried to ask questions. So it is very important for you to start having the mindset to first of all ask questions, right? You can listen, these days with Coursera, Udemy, Pluralsight, IPL, there are like gazillion courses available online to do product management courses. I have done myself courses. I'm still doing. The other day I cleared a course on Azure, right? This is a certification process is something that is a continuous activity. You need to continuously upgrade yourself, upskill yourself. But you need to start having the mindset of questioning. To be a successful product manager, you need to question, how can I make this job simpler, easier, and repeatable rather than trying to do it every single time. So I don't want to talk about which certification. You have to. So if you want to be so Sagna asked that question, which certification? Do a data. If you want to be a product manager in data analytics, do a certification in product management. Do a certification on data analytics. You need to have the depth in both. And then you need to have the ability to ask questions. Challenge everything. Yeah?
Yeah. So, Vineet, there is one question from Navakrishna in the chat. I am currently working as a product manager for an ERP product. I come from a UX design and strategy background. Any advisory on skills I could focus on to be better?
So now, Krishna, I think so you are working in an ERP product, right? ERP, it means it's a business to business product, not a business to consumer, right? So the mindset of business to business is a lot different than business to consumer. You cannot ship out. So in business to consumer, the volume is very high. You will be able to, you are talking to the consumer directly, right? And your consumer really well. You can do A/B experiments with your consumers directly. But in business to business, and I have been in the role of both a business to business product manager and business to consumer product manager. So you need to actually, if you want to be a successful product manager in business to business specifically, you need to understand your consumers. Your consumer. So in a business to business deal, right, we would go and talk to the chief investment officer of a large mutual fund, right, when we were providing them products. But those products were never used by their firm because when we were creating the product, we were talking to the CIO. But CIO is not the one who actually uses the product. My consumer is someone else. So as a product manager, you need to differentiate between your user and your consumer. And as a product manager, you need to understand your consumer of who will be actually. So in your ERP product, your consumer, your user probably will be the CFO, but your consumer would be the guy who is doing daily accounting entries in the product. So it is very important for you to understand your consumer and talk to the accountants on the shop floor rather than talking to the CFO. So that's the skill you should be built. Understand your consumers. That's the most important skill for any product manager. You already know UX design and strategy, but you need to understand your consumer. So start talking to the accountants who are using your ERP product. Understand your consumers. That's the most important skill.
Great.
Never, ever take the feedback of the CFO as the final verdict on your product strategy.
Great. Thanks, Vineet. That was great. Now, Krishna, ask if you have any follow-up questions. Vineet is still there online. Yeah, so there was another question, Vineet, on what all things to be careful about and things that will help one ace an online job interview during MBA. What all are the key factors that the interviewers look out for? I think this is a little generic question. I don't know whether you want to address this or maybe we can do it at the end.
Sure, I agree with you, Surita, right? Honestly speaking, right, being able to address that question, you need a lot more context, right? There cannot be a generic answer to it that, do these XYZ things, right? Because I don't know who your interviewer is going to be, what is your background, how do you channelize your strengths? Because at the end of the day, in every job interview, you need to be able to channelize your strengths to the interviewer, right? If you don't get selected in an interview, it doesn't mean that you are bad. It's just that, I take interviews and I talk to some fantastic guys, but I have rejected guys mainly because, my budget for a particular role was say 50 lakhs and this guy is asking for 75 lakhs. As simple as that, right? So there's nothing wrong with the guy, but he is too expensive for me. Or I was looking for a guy in certain technology, but he has a different technology. Fantastic guy. But again, it doesn't match with my requirement. So at the end of the day, a very generic advice is, if you really want a role, understand those requirements of that job and prepare for those requirements. And try to fit yourself, your background to that requirement. If it fits, great. That's the only generic answer I can give to that.
Great. Thanks, Vineet. So Vineet is also our frequent and regular mentor who does also one-on-one mentoring sessions as well. So he has a lot of expertise, but as he said, it should be tailored to an individual's requirement. Great. Vineet, there's one more question. How has the role of data analyst changed over the years?
So, right, I think the data analysts have changed. The role of data analyst has changed, where I'll use the word in quotes. So what? Right? So what? So you need to answer. So what? Right? What does that mean? That means is earlier, we were all report builders. We would just simply create a report and give it to my stakeholder. These days, the expectation from a data analyst is, when you give a report, you don't give a report, you actually give insights, right? The profit of this particular product has increased by 10%. So what? Because other products are only increased by 5%. This product has increased by 10% because this and this market segment is where we're observing. So you need to give your observations on the data and give your commentary on the data. You should be able to know your data. That's the main difference that has changed, is that you need to provide insights, not data. A data analyst means you are analyzing the data, providing your expert opinion on the data, not on business. So based on the data, you say that, you know what, if profitability is increasing, it is increasing mainly in this geographies, this time of the year, this seasonality, whatever. But you need to address the reasons. So that's the so what, right? So that's how the role is changing from a data analyst perspective.
Great, great. There is a related question from Abhinash, right, on how often businesses fail to ask the right kind of questions to the analytics team. How does the analytics team make sure what data they collect is actually going to be worth anything? And what role does a product manager has ensuring validity and reliability of the data collected?
I'll tell you, right? This is a beautiful question, right? And this is a problem we face on a daily basis, right? I mean, if I think about it, I will get like so many examples where, you know, business is not asking the right questions. At the end of the day, that is the role of a product manager to ask the right questions from the business. Is that what you really want? What is the real business problem you're trying to solve? Is it a symptom or a problem? So, you know what? This is again, it's very difficult to actually have a very, a formula based approach to solving this question. It comes with experience, it comes with time. At the moment, at same thing, right? I will, so at the end of the day, I typically what I do whenever I go into a meeting with specifically with senior stakeholders, I actually prepare the data and questions in advance. So all you have to do is you need, as I always say, and I've said it many times, you need to ask a lot of questions, right? And only after asking questions, you will get into the habit of actually identifying the right question. Unless you ask questions, right, you will not know whether it's a right or a wrong. During my MBA, and some of my colleagues are here, I was actually often laughed on for asking too many questions in my class. But I never cared. And then some of my batchmates are, listening to me and probably laughing right now. They will remember. But, that never scared me. And I think as a product manager, if you don't ask questions, you will very soon become a redundant product manager. And what questions to ask, again, it's very difficult for me to answer that. It again depends on the business context. You need to know the business context, and then it comes with time.
Right. Thanks, Vinit. Vinit, there is a question from Vipul. If someone is from non-IT background, can you become a successful product manager?
It's a very I am from a non-IT background, by the way. I am not an engineer. I'm a chartered accountant, right? But I'm going to be honest, right? In India, someone from a non-IT background, product management is actually far more difficult than for a person from an IT background, because there are just way too many people with IT background available in India, right? So if I have to hire somebody, right, and if I have a person who is from IT background and who is from a non-IT background, my proclivity to hire someone from an IT background, even though I am from non-IT, would be higher, right? And that's unfortunately a real problem. The thing is, product management, right, as a stream, right? You don't necessarily need to know IT. You don't need to know coding, but you need to be able to understand and challenge your technology teams when they are trying to, do a fast one on you. So that comes with experience. Now, if you talk from an engineering perspective, right, there are people who are civil engineers and they are in IT. Civil engineering has nothing to do with IT, but I often face that challenge that civil engineers probably preferred over me, right? But that's a real challenge. When I was in the US, that was absolutely not a challenge for me, because the mindset there is different. In India, it's a bit of a challenge, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to put a very rosy picture. Can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done. You'll have to work harder. It's as simple as that. Right? You need to be able to crack your technology interviews. Right? There are going to be technology interviews in India, and you need to be able to crack those.
Great. So, Vinit, there's another related question to this, what you just spoke about. What is the future of product management in India? And should one look for opportunities outside India to succeed in this particular job role? What are the skill sets needed to improve my product management knowledge? I think you can answer the first part of the question.
Sure. So, product management in India is growing at a very, very rapid pace, right? If you would have spoken 5 years ago, nobody cared about product managers. Today, everybody is just talking about product managers. I think product manager as a role is becoming even hotter than a data science role, right? In India. So, absolutely, if you get an opportunity to be a product management, and if you have the knack, and if you enjoy that, let me tell you one thing, right? Product management as a role is not an easy role. You have all the responsibility, right? You have all the accountability, but you will have nobody reporting to you, right? Product manager is a person who is a individual contributor at a very senior level also. He will not have people reporting to you. So you will have to be the one who will have to create your product backlog. You will have to be the one who will have to write your user stories. You will have to be the one who will have to prioritize those user stories. Nobody is going to be doing it for you, right? So product management is hard. It is very ambiguous. You have no clue what you have to do. So don't pick product management just because it's a fancy title. Pick product management because you actually enjoy it, because it's difficult, right? Now, and most of the product manager roles are individual contributors. They are not, you will not have a, army of people reporting to you. This is not a services business, right? At very senior levels, VP levels, there are individuals as product managers. So to answer that question, stay absolutely. And if you like product management, pick up that role anywhere. In India, outside India, doesn't matter. As long as it's a good role, pick it up anywhere. So recently there was a colleague of mine, he was getting a role outside India, and then he was getting a role in Dubai. He asked me, he used to report to me, he was a data scientist earlier. So I told him, I spoke with him, and I found out that the role outside India was more of a services consulting, but role in India was a product. So I told him, better you take the role in India. So again, depending on the role, don't go on the location, don't go fancy titles, go on what you will be doing on a daily basis.
Vinit, just a quick question here, Alok here. Lot of companies nowadays are coming up with the product management role, and sometimes it happens that they are using product management designation just for the sake of it, so that students get or maybe people can get attracted to. Do you see these kind of things? So how do you identify this is actual a product management role, or companies are just using designation to lure more people?
So Alok, if I understood your question correctly, what you said is that a lot of companies are
using product management designations or roles.
Basically they are disguising project manager role as a product manager to hire candidates. Is that what your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it happens a lot, and so I think the most important. So I'll tell you, right. Microsoft, Amazon, right, Google, many of these companies, the official title is actually program manager. It's not even product manager. If you actually go into the system and check, and if you actually see the offer letter, the title is program manager. It's not product manager. But they are true product managers. They are working as product managers because that's their role. At the end of the day, the role of a product manager, and the most important part of the product manager role, is your ability to actually interact with your consumers, right? So understand how much of your role will actually be interaction with your customers and consumers, right? If you are not going to be interacting with customers and consumers, it is highly likely it is more of a project or a program manager role. If you are interacting with your consumers directly, it is highly likely it's a product manager role. Don't go on the title. Go on whether you, I'll tell you the most important aspect about product management is you are in touch with your consumers. Can you pick up the phone and call them and ask them, what do you think about this? Is it making sense to you? Is it good? If yes, you are in a product manager role. If you cannot do that, you're likely to be more of a project manager or an internal product manager. You could also be an internal product manager, so which is also okay, right?
Thank you, Vineet.
Great. We'll take one more question from the chat, and then we'll check with the audience. There's a question from Prashant Kondle. How much of PM work is truly finding the needle in a haystack compared to building quantitative proof for which one knows through experience other competitors, industry competitors? Prashant is there on the call. Prashant, if you'd like to clarify the question, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to know, do PMs in analytics really use data to find...
Prashant, you're not audible.
Yeah, how about now?
Yeah, better.
Yeah, so, do PMs, particularly who are doing growth and analytics, do they really try to find something, which is non-standard, not seen before in the industry? Or more of the work is to find, look at data and attach more proof to something which you already know? Like, let's say, look at something which a competitor is doing and they see growth on if they made certain changes and say, you know what, we need to build a business case on that. You're not trying to find the innovative solution. You're just adding more proof to something which is known, like through experience, through like something which customers have directly told the PMs, or you're looking at some adjacent industry. So how is it like, are they really doing something where they're just following a path where people have fallen and I just need to build more proof because I want to get the yes from the CPO or CEO and so on and so forth, or they're trying to find something which, changes how the customer looks at a product or a particular feature completely?
So Prashant, I'll give a very simplistic example on something very similar, right? So in a previous organization, right, we were doing a marketing campaign, right? So what the product would do is we would essentially send marketing messages on either SMS or WhatsApp. So the cost of a WhatsApp message is about 3.5 to 4 times as compared to an SMS. And when you accumulate that cost over, say, millions of customers, that cost comes to probably millions of dollars a month, right? So it's a significant cost. Now, if the mandate is reduce the cost, you start with the hypothesis that SMS and WhatsApp conversion is the same. I'm telling a real life example, right? So you build an A/B experiment, right? You have a hypothesis that you have the same segment of customers, same region, and you have to build that there are going to be biases. To tell you the truth, right? When you are building that use case, also you'll have a bias that you already know that I need to reduce my cost. My CFO is asking to reduce the cost. SMS costs about 1/3 of WhatsApp. So if I actually focus on WhatsApp, then obviously my cost will reduce. But what will be the impact on the business? So I think that's where the role of a product manager comes in, that you need to have a very unbiased approach in terms of approaching a solution, right? So when we actually did that analysis, although the WhatsApp was about 3.5 to 4 times more expensive, what we came to know is that WhatsApp messages that we are sending from a conversion perspective was about 10 times more effective than an SMS message, right? So from a value of money, we realized we wanted to remove WhatsApp, but we actually realized that WhatsApp was actually far more efficient, right? So I think as a product manager, I often use the word that we always talk about data driven. I think, but the world is moving more and more towards data guided, right? You will always have a gut feeling in terms of where you want to take a decision. But the amount of data that is available, you need to still have some data to back your hypothesis, right? So data is very important to take some of the decisions from a product management perspective. Hope that answers your question, Prashant.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. So we will take one. Yeah, Raj, you can go ahead if you have a question.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vineet, sir, for taking this session. I have a question that who shouldn't be going for the product manager role?
Who shouldn't be going for it? First of all, one simple thing, right? If you think you need an army of people to report to you, never think of product manager. If you think if you're not a self-starter, you are not self-motivated. Every day when you wake up in the morning, you think, what? How can I improve this? Right? You should not be a product manager. Right? There are different mindsets of people, because product manager, as much of a fancy it is actually, if you can't deal with ambiguity, you want clarity of thought, that somebody tells you in the morning that what, that I want this to be executed today, please finish it, right? It's very easy. It's actually very easy if someone tells you that get this done and do it. But if you don't even know and you have to find that question, you literally have to find that question yourself, that what should I do this morning? You need to have that drive. If you are not able to ask those kind of questions with yourself, then one should not be a product manager, because it's actually a very ambiguous role. Otherwise, you will just end up becoming a glorified program manager. If you just execute what you're supposed to do, you're just a project manager. A product manager is someone who actually tells himself कि यार आज मैं ये करूँगा. Nobody is telling me what to do. I am telling myself this is what I'm going to do today, tomorrow, and for the next 1 year. Right? So that's the very core fundamental difference.
Thank you.
Hope
Thank
that
you
answers the question.
Yes, that answers. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
There's just one, unless there are some questions from audience, there was one more question from Tanya. So her question was what is the role of product management? What are some of the key responsibilities of a product manager? I think that's already you have covered that. How are the digital forces driving product management? That's the third part of her question.
Digital forces. Okay, first of all, let me maybe explain what digital is, right? Because there are a lot of keywords these days, and I think it is important that people understand what is digital or digitalization, right? So let me find an appropriate example. Okay, so earlier, in the previous organization, we would have customers where we will simply send the data in an Excel file to that customer. What we will do is we will actually, at the end of the day, we had like thousands of customers, and we will send an Excel file to that customer, right? But now what we did is, instead of having that Excel file, we created an API. What the API would do is, essentially, and what the customer would do. Okay, before I talk about the API, what the customer would do is, customer would essentially, import that Excel file in their database and do whatever they have to do, right? So what we did was, instead of doing that, we created an API. Now, what that API does, it simply, the customer calls that API, pulls the data, and directly connects their own API and puts the data into their database, right? So what we did was, by creating that API, we are trying to digitalize the process. Earlier, it was sending hundreds and thousands of Excel files. Now, it's a self-service mechanism, right? So this is what one example of digitalization, right? Now, to answer the question, how is digitalization changing product management? I think one of the most fundamental aspects about product management is digitalization, where we are creating a product through which 10 different. So currently, without sharing examples of a specific organization, we are creating a common repository or a golden copy of some data. Earlier, we were sending that data to multiple people, but now by creating an API, all our downstream customers can just use that API. So instead of sending 5 different APIs, I'm just using that one. Sorry, 5 different files. I'm just using that one API. All my customers are using that, right? So digitalization is absolutely revolutionizing product management. I think one of the main roles of a product manager is to ensure digitalization. Hope that answers the question.
One question from Asta. Do we have product manager designation in terms of specialization, like marketing, or is it related to it field only? I think she's asking
Is
whether
it
it is
related
to it field only.
No, I don't think there's a product manager for marketing unless that company's job is marketing. Let's say, for example, yes, Surta, you were saying something?
I think she's asking whether product manager is a specialization, like marketing is a specialization. Asta, you are there on the call. Do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, I'm on the call. So, no, what I wanted to ask is like, so I'm doing something in marketing. So, can I, without having an IT background, and Sir said that it's not really necessary to have that IT background, but they most probably hire people from IT background only. So, that's why I'm a little confused in terms of like कि marketing field में भी ऐसा कुछ designation होता है क्या कि namely product manager or something like that?
Because marketing is one of the things that a product manager actually does, right? So marketing is a subset of a product manager, right? So when Sundar Pichai became the product manager for Google OS or Google Chrome, he was also responsible for marketing of Google OS, right? He might have a marketing team under him who would actually design the marketing campaign, but from a messaging perspective, he was the one who was responsible. He was the CEO of Google, so essentially he was the CEO of Google Chrome. So marketing as a function is a subset of product management. Now the question is that whether with a marketing background, can you become a product manager? Absolutely. So as I mentioned, you can become a product manager depending on let me put it this way, right? You join an FMCG company and you're selling a soap or an agarbatti. That is also a product. A product manager is not just in technology. There are product managers in LG. There are product managers in Samsung. What are they doing? They are creating TVs, right? So they are not the ones who are actually manufacturing TVs. I know folks who are non-tech, like they are BCom. They are not even fancy degrees, but they are product managers in LGs and Samsungs of the world, where they are understanding the consumer demand and creating that the product should have, but they should at least know that, you know what, if I'm creating a laptop as a new product, you know, and my target segment is, say, you know what, 18 to 25 years old, when they're doing a lot of gaming, so that, you know, maybe I should have a high graphics GPU card, right? They need to at least know that much. They need to know more about the domain of their product, right? Now, if their domain is like, you know what, they need to know what are the different components of a laptop. How many ports should it have? You know, in a gaming, maybe you need to have one port for the Xbox. I don't know, one port, you know, maybe typical laptops have one, you know, HDMI port. Maybe they want a port for input and an output. So those are the things that they will need to know. So if you're talking about as a marketing background, there might be certain marketing products, right, where they need people with marketing background. Say, for example, if you have to automate social media campaigns and someone has launched a new product to do social media campaigns only, then you can join that company and create a product for them, because as part of marketing, you would have done social media campaigns. So if you want to do an AI, artificial intelligence based social media campaign that based on a certain trigger, you're able to respond. So I was actually looking at a, you know, funny message where, you know, someone on LinkedIn or Twitter, right, gave a very sarcastic remark on, you know, on Indigo Airlines, that, you know, I was supposed to go to Patna. So thank you for sending my bag to Jammu and me to Patna. Now he was being sarcastic that, you know, you send my bag to Jammu, but the AI bot of Indigo said that, you know, you're very welcome, sir. We are happy to serve you. Right now, if you are as a marketing person becomes the product manager for that AI product, you need to tell your, you know, developer that please make sure that you are able to understand the sarcasm in the voice. So that is where the comes with your experience maybe in social media marketing. So again, you know, if you become with, you know, marketing experience, you become a product manager for you know, a laptop company, it will not make sense. You need to have the domain knowledge. So one of the key aspects of product manager is you need to have the domain knowledge of that product.
Great.
And you can be a
Thanks.
product manager.
Yeah. Asta, hope it answers your question.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions? Because I think, yeah, we have already overshot by 20 odd minutes. Great. So thank you so much, Vineet, for the very interesting session. We did learn a lot about product management and analytics, and how two of them are, you know, interlinked with each other, how both of them drive each other. So thank you so much for the wonderful session, and thank you so much for patiently answering all the questions which the audience had. It was great to have you today, and thank you so much.
Sure.
And yeah.
Go on, Sweta.
Yeah, and thanks to all the audience who have been here since 12. We will be sharing a feedback form as well, so that you can, and if you have any follow-up questions as well, do share that with us. We will get those answered from Vineet as well. So do share the feedback. We will share it to you in some time. So thank you everyone for joining the session, and thanks, Vineet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was a good session.
Yeah, thank you, Vineet. And thanks to my co-founder Alok and my team members Shiva and Vidya for organizing this session. Thank you very much. Thanks, Vineet. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks. Bye.